Vortex with Yolie, where we talk about all things love. Fall into the vortex with Yolie. Fall into the vortex.
Hey, y'all. Thank you for once again falling into the vortex with Yolie. My heart is beating so fast right now because I am joined by someone tonight that I love dearly. Such a dear, dear friend to me in so many ways. And Dr. Cluny Lavache, just tell us who you are. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. How about that?
Oh boy. Well, thank you for having me on this special occasion, Yolanda.
Yeah.
Your work is phenomenal. I'm gonna start there. Your heart is pure and it's beautiful. So everything you do is like Midas. It turns to gold. So we just expect greatness from you, my dear. Cluny Lavache, Dr. Lavache. I am a lifelong learner and educator. I hold a position of assistant principal, having done principalship and then worked on my dissertation, reverted back to assistant principalship. Currently an adjunct professor at Brooklyn College. And my interest really lies in for us, by us. I've heard the document or Dr. Muhammad, Goldie Muhammad, speak about the standards and how back in the 18th, 17th century, they were higher than the standards we have today.
Yes.
Or we have our own standards and need not define ourselves by the white gaze.
Yes.
That said, my focus is predominantly the academic achievement of African American, and not just African American, but Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Latina, Latina, Latinx, if you wish.
Across the diaspora.
Exactly. In the urban setting, and how racial congruency of students and teachers and their impact on student success.
Okay, say something more about racial incongruency. And I want to say something. First of all, I want to give you a shout out, not just as, in terms of this show and the book, one of the amazing pre-reviewers. And I'm so grateful that your review has graced the inside of this book. But you produced an incredible dissertation and an incredible theory that I think sits right along with when we talk about Gloria Ladson-Billings and the work that she does in terms of culturally responsiveness, Geneva Gay, you know, the folks who are both our friends and scholars that we read. Your work is powerful, Dr. Lavache.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. What is also powerful is the way in which you lead. I have been, had the honor of coming to your school and seeing the respect that your teachers, that your students have for you. And your heart is so focused and strong on us. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about the concept of racial congruency, incongruency, and just talk a little bit about where your work, where you want to take your work, if you don't mind.
No problem. I think, you see, we are constantly fed a narrative that speaks to the deficit model of our young people. And yet our young people, when they're in the right environment, are thriving. You know, Dr. Love, Bettina Love, says that we need abolitionists, no longer just allies, but abolitionists. I'm saying we need revolutionaries.
All right now.
Beyond this scope of, okay, I'm not saying that the other cannot teach our children and where they can learn from that, but there's a sense of prior to 1954, the reason why we're in the state that we're in is because, or there's not the African-American teachers that we're looking for in the pool, is because they were disenfranchised with the integration. And so when you look at institutions that are highly focused on young people, highly congruent in terms of racial congruency, you know, what you find is that young people who can identify with those that are teaching them and who can identify both on a cultural perspective, both all on that spectrum, because they come with a lot of cultural assets.
Yes.
And we have to tap into that. And even when we're not so astute on those cultural assets of our students, we have to become astute. We have to be informed. We have to have the wherewithal to get our young people to understand us and we understand them, and then engage them in the learning. Dr. Emden says it as well. I mean, the literature is out there. When students find people who they can relate to and they feel that they belong in the community, they thrive.
Yes.
They succeed academically, socially. We don't have to worry about all the things. And sometimes in our community, we love them in our own way. And it's with that love. There's the I don't want to say, what's the terminology we often say? Tough love, right? There's the tough love, but it's called creating the space where we create structure, love, and discipline.
And I call it critical love. And I call it critical love too, because it's love that's connected to their liberation.
Exactly.
What does it mean for them to get free from what the scripts that society has written about them, and sometimes the scripts that they've written about themselves.
Exactly. We have to give them that space to find who they are as well.
So talk a little bit about, Dr. Lavache, your work, just in terms of where you want to be going. You are already a sought after speaker. You did an incredible teach-in at the recent New York City Men Teach annual showcase. You've presented specifically with the New York City Department of Education Young Men's Initiative. Where do you see yourself going in light of the beautiful work you've produced with your dissertation? I had the honor of being able to read it. Where do you see yourself going with this work?
Yolanda, this work has, just as we talk about radical love, if we are going to love radically our young people, we have to take this prior moment and speak to so many issues that we need to clear up. And we can't, recently I asked in a panel, what would schooling look like if we were in Wakanda? Right? Because that gives us the perspective, right?
Well, first of all the teachers would be Black. Holla.
Racial congruency again.
Okay, let's get this.
Excellence that comes out of that.
Let's get this.
Is what I'm referring to, because it is about us teaching. We have Black excellence. Black excellence exists. I know, again, Goldie Nasser Mohammed.
Yes.
I know Yolanda Sealey-Ruiz. I know Erica Walker. I know Dr. Emden. There's a lot of people.
Dr. Cluny Lavache.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. And we have all the people that we need to create that environment that allows our young people to strive. So when you ask me, where do I see my work? I see myself speaking to large audiences saying, listen, we need to come together and make this happen. I've also considered the possibility of putting a proposal together for a new high school.
Let's get it. Yes. Let's get it. Yes.
To impose, but again, to draw out the excellence, particularly for students that might be homeless or in foster care, where they become stabilized in a home environment with staff and people who care for them and who will instruct them. Because education, there's a difference between schooling and education, and most people should know the difference, because currently schooling is propaganda.
Yes.
And education is for liberation.
Come on.
And once we can put young people who have not had that opportunity in spaces where they can draw out both their emotional intelligence, social intelligence, academic intelligence, then we create, and the creative intelligence. Right?
Oh, creative intelligence. Oh.
We often leave the arts out, and the arts allows young people to have balance.
And you know what? Adults too.
Yes.
Because the art of poetry saved me and freed me.
Indeed. Yes. you know, when I read Love from the Vortex, it was clear there was a rebirth. And sometimes we have to go through situations, experiences, so that we can come out through the light.
Yes.
Yesterday, I was in a space and I was listening to a sermon, and the priest said he went through the waters in St. Paul and at the Vatican, and then came out on the light on the east. So he went from west to east so that he could come out where the sun rose. And one thing that he said that was very poignant for me, he said, it is difficult to love thy neighbor that persecutes you, and that is why we need a higher force.
Amen.
So with that said, I'm always seeking to be in tune with my higher force so that I can always show love, even when it's difficult.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna try not to cry because there's been a couple of these episodes that have just hit me to heart. And you know, and I want to be transparent with the audience that's listening. You know, I'm at the top of the show. I talked about Dr. Cluny and someone who is very close to me, and particularly the last two chapters of the book, the last two lovers. She has been an incredible support. She and her partner have been an incredible support for me during those years. And you know, my sister circle saves me also. And so I just want to publicly thank you for all of those conversations by phone, in your car, you know, just sitting and eating and just listening, all of the tears that you've seen me shed, but also the laughter, because there was a lot of joy as well. But I want to thank you and your dear partner for just being there for me, particularly through the last, I would say, 3 years, you know, of my life.
Pleasure. You know, when we are truly sisters and loving each other, we're there no matter what.
Yes.
And that's something that you learn as you get older, to support the women and men, because men,
they need it too.
Guidance too, right? And they need love too. And sometimes it's often this competition or battle, and we don't need to battle each other anymore because we have bigger fishes, as they say, to fry, right?
Yes, that's right.
And in doing so, we find compassion in ourselves and genuinely loving one another. And that's when you see, again, the brilliance and the excellence come to fruition.
Now, I know you have a couple of poems, because before we got on, I would say, okay, Cluny, do you know what poem you want to read? And you're like, I got a few. So let's jump in. And for those of you, while Dr. Cluny is going to the book, pick up your book. And I just want to remind you of how the show flows. You saw at the opening, Cluny just talk to us about whatever was on her heart, what was on her mind, her own work. And then we're going to move now to Love from the Vortex. She'll read a couple of poems, and then we will flow based on what she talks about. It is completely unscripted, unedited, and so we are here to flow together. So turning it back over to you.
All right, so page 80.
Page 80, okay, let me get there.
The Vortex.
Yes, the Zarin section.
You know, Aaron section, I get it, but the idea of leaving the vortex is a symbolism that you have learned the lessons you're supposed to learn. And so therefore, my passion for you is no longer useful now that you know my potential to love you. I will not slip again into sadness. I will not write streams of consciousness that spiral my heart into the vortex. I am grateful for the vortex. It has served me well. It is now time to leave it behind and discover what beauty awaits. You know, when you learn the lesson that you're supposed to learn in this realm of loving someone or some entity, whatever it may be, when you learn the lesson, you can then move on to what's going to be greater.
Mm.
And that's what leaving the vortex allows.
Mm-hmm.
Because then once you leave it, you now have room to allow love to return.
Yes.
You allow healing to take place,
Mm-hmm.
and that lesson is learned because you're able to move away from it, knowing you've done what you could have done,
Yes.
and then you're okay. You know, in the line where it says, I will not slip again into sadness, that becomes empowering.
Mm.
You become empowered, and that you will no longer write streams of consciousness that spiral your heart. I mean, for me, that speaks volume, because oftentimes when, you know, when a relationship doesn't work, you're like, okay, what's going on here?
Oh, yeah.
It really spirals you. You feel like you're in a tornado.
Yes, that's the vortex.
Vortex, right? And once you are able to, stand up in the vortex, out of the vortex, seeing it pass you by, then you're renewed.
Mm.
So for me, that was an important one.
Beautiful. What's next?
What's next?
I get so giddy. I don't think you can fully understand the joy that I've had with each of these interviews, not just with people I deeply love and respect, but to hear them read my words and to talk about them. There's no greater joy for an artist. There's no greater joy. So thank you. Next, I'm ready.
So page 104.
104.
To love a Pisces.
Ah, the Tyrone section.
and here it is that I too am a Pisces.
I know.
So I do understand the
Tell me what you understand, because I wrote the poem, and I was married to a Pisces for 26 years. And most of the men in my life have been Pisces. I'm still learning.
And I think that they're difficult because they begin on one realm and it seemingly shifts because there's this, they too are insecure of themselves in the presence of their partner. You know, it's almost as if, am I good enough?
Are you speaking from personal experience?
At times I've felt that way, but recognizing again that Pisces, because of the significance of the astrology in itself, it takes on some character traits of all the other ones.
Yes, yes.
So
water sign.
It's very quite camouflaged at times, and it's self-preservation.
Wow.
Yeah, it's often preserving themselves because they too do not want to be in a vortex and spiraling out of control, because they want to maintain that composure.
But why not just let go and let love?
Well, because they haven't learned their lessons. So if you go back to leaving the vortex, you stay in the vortex until you've learned the lesson. And that's the issue. So to love a Pisces, I am most insecure with you. I'm most secure with you. My vulnerabilities explode in your presence. I am brought to safety. I am most afraid with you. I am most courageous with you. My instincts to run is activated, yet I find rest in your arms. Again, there's the sense of preservation, but willingness. And it's man against himself.
Taking me back to English class now.
Doubt lingers, unwanted questions remain, but I'm ever fully present to accept this is the work of the heart when it decides to love. This is not, I want to say it's not so much about Yolie, who wrote this, but it is about the Piscean who's experiencing this and you're capturing it.
It came through me then.
Yes. You
Wow.
were the vessel for writing this in reflection of Tyrone, I believe.
Wow. Tyrone, Angel is a Pisces as well.
Right. So it is really, this is the duality of the Pisces. Again, the two fish, and their head to tail, right? Battling man against man.
Wow. Damn, Cluny.
Sorry.
Damn.
It's like, when you first read, when I first read it, I saw it on one lens. And so before I sat down with you a couple of days ago, I had to reread the whole text. And I actually feeling that, okay, there's so much more to this text that one must decipher, both on a personal level and then looking at it holistically. But because I am a Pisces, I understand it in that particular poem.
So would you say that, I don't want to say I hit the mark, because I do recognize in some degree I was a vessel, because it's a vortexian experience for me to even read this. And sometimes I'm thinking, did I write this? So there were moments, Cluny, where it just poured out of me. And I've talked about it before, where I would wake up in the morning and I couldn't go to the bathroom, I couldn't eat, I couldn't do anything. Sometimes the poems, the words would just race ahead of me. I didn't even have time to write because I couldn't keep up with the words as they were happening. So I had to speak them into my phone.
Yeah.
So I do believe that there is a passing through of some of these words. And so do you think I hit the mark, or do you think this is true to a Piscean in any way?
I think it's very, very close to the mark. That's like bullseye. Yeah.
You know what else, Cluny? No, go ahead.
Self-preservation, because, sometimes not feeling that you are, again, let me start again. I am most insecure, and at the same time, I am most secure. So what would make me both insecure and secure at the same time if I'm not there, right? Because when you're present, you're secure. When you're not present, then all kinds of things go into your head. You can start writing a script that doesn't even exist. And when that, and then, you don't know which is fact or fiction anymore, because you've already internalized certain things that doesn't have to be. Simple to say that, but I'm fully present to accept this is the work of the heart. Some things you're not meant to understand. But right. That is also part of, again, leaving the vortex is because you've learned the lesson. I keep going back to that particular poem because it is not and from experience, until I learned the lesson that I was supposed to learn, then all the love that I thought I had was not necessarily for me.
What do you mean?
What do I mean? Okay. So when you when you believe you've fallen in love with someone, everything is great. You don't see anything wrong, quotes, right? You just see the love. And so patterned, you become habitual in your patterns. And until you start to really see those patterns and learn, again, I keep going back to the lesson, because you will keep repeating the same, I don't want to say errors or mistakes, but lessons.
Until you get it.
Until you get it. And so in order to break that cycle, you have to come out of that vortex. And so when you come out, then you can then truly, again, find that genuine love, that real love, that critical love, that you could be honest and still be okay. You could agree to disagree and know that, okay, the world's not going to crumble. And that's where, that's when you've learned the lesson. You're okay in your own skin. So it brings me to page 110.
Okay, let me get there. Lord have mercy. Spread love.
Yes.
You're in a lot of Tyrone tonight.
I don't even know why, but this is where it led me.
If Tyrone is listening, he knows why.
Spread love. It was only in that moment of letting you go that I learned the way to spread love is to live free. That's when you learn the lesson. You've let it go and you've learned the lesson.
Yes.
You embody all that is love. You promote it in the way you move. Your swagger speaks of love. Love is in the warmth of your eyes, the beauty of your smile. You carry love in the moment of your hand, in the movement of your hands. Even the clothes you wear speak of love. I hear it, just as my heart did when we first met. My heart heard and listened. Love, I am still listening. It's the first stanza. It was only in that moment of letting you go that I learned the way to spread love is to live free.
It's the truth. That is the truth.
So
I don't know. I'm really speechless. You've rendered me speechless. I guess it's better than crying. I guess it's better than crying at this point. But you know, oh yeah, you know there is so much joy in this book for me. Joy. I don't want to say equal parts joy, equal parts pain, equal parts struggle. That's a mathematical game that I don't need to play. But I just want to be very clear that there is so much joy and release in the writing of this. And what I learned in the vortex, at the time, it was super painful.
of course.
And when betrayal hits, that's super painful. But then when you're able to, or I was able to sort of take all of this in and to see where there had been signs for me that I chose to ignore, when I really took in the full lesson, you know, there is joy in that, learning that wisdom about yourself. There's joy in realizing that you are, as Toni Morrison would say, you are your best thing.
That's right. That's right.
So, I don't know, you're just making me feel a lot of joy tonight with this.
I as I said, genuineness and love is something, I'm not going to say it doesn't take work, but in this situation, this just flows between you and I, and the love that exists between sisters and
Yes.
and you know, in so many different ways, capacity as mentor and so many different ways, Yolanda.
You're my mentor. You know that.
Come on now.
Come on, let's tell the truth.
We're each other's mentor. How about that?
We are. That's
All right.
fair. Yes.
You know, so much more. The review that's in the book is only a snippet of what the analysis I did of the book. It represented, you know, as it says, a documentation and a memorialization of how love can hurt and liberate. And I think that is the purpose. Love in a cardinal way. You see, we're very, as humans, our love is cardinal until we learn the lesson to become spiritual lovers. Because in the spirit realm, there is no tension.
Love is free, it flows.
Exactly. But in the cardinal sense, there's this struggle all the time.
Yeah.
Because we come with expectations or baggage or whatever the case may be, and not realizing that leave the baggage, have no expectations except to be good to one another. When you come through the park from the west side to the east side on 63rd Street, it actually ends up on the east side on 66th Street, and on the building across the street from a synagogue, it says, and it's carved into the building, love thy neighbor as you love thyself. And when we're able to do that and see each other as reflections of one another, this process of love is simple. It's so simple.
Yeah, love is easy, relationships are hard. That's in the book too.
For sure.
Oh my gosh, Cluny, you know, I can't believe that we've actually come to the end of our time, right? So what we usually do on Fall into the Vortex with Yolie, to make sure that the guest has the last word, I turn it back over to you to ask you to, sometimes I ask guests to share advice for those who are listening from your own experience on anything, or you can share whatever you like. What's most important is that you have the last word. So as we close, this is our closing ritual, as we come to a close of this beautiful conversation that has touched my heart in so many ways. What is it that you'd like to say to the listeners and the viewers of Fall into the Vortex with Yolie?
Once you've learned the lesson, your heart will be free to love freely.
Let's get free, y'all.
It's about liberation.
It is about liberation. Well.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your mind. And thank you for your love. Good night, y'all. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you at the next episode.
Good night.
Bye-bye.